I mean, I have no idea if we're even live right now. Are we live? Are we live? I don't know. I'd love to talk about the Mets, but OBS does not want to cooperate. I mean, it looks like we're live right now, but like, can you actually see me on camera? Oh my God, you can! Look at that. It only took me 2 hours to figure out. How about that? Look at that. We're here. And the Mets are 0-1. Oh my gosh. Wow. And they lost 3-1 to the Astros. And that was really it. That was the whole story. The bats were kind of quiet, no big deal. It was whatever, just a normal ho hum kind of game. And then Juan Soto struck out to end the game as the potential go-ahead run. But who cares, right? No one's talking about that. Not a big deal at all. Obviously, that is the big storyline today. Juan Soto striking out to end the game there in the ninth inning. And the Mets 3-1 loss here on opening day to the Houston Astros. A tough one for the Mets here. And really just because of the way it ended and because now we're getting antagonized by other fans all around baseball. Juan Soto's overrated, $800 million for him to chase a pitch out of the zone, blah, 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 whatever. We'll get into it eventually, but right now, let's just kind of recap the game, go through this one, and see what exactly went wrong for the Mets. So all the bunting was hung for opening day down there at what's now called Daikin Park. Not a great name, by the way. Would have stuck with Minute Maid personally, even though, there's a lot of sugar in those drinks, but nonetheless, the Mets came out and we're looking to get their first victory of the Juan Soto era. Francisco Lindor leading the game off and absolutely strokes that ball, but unfortunately, Jeremy Pena making a leaping catch on that line drive. That brought up Juan Soto, who officially becomes a Met, gets his first base hit in the orange and blue with a little ground ball up the middle. Pete Alonso would walk to put runners at first and second, and then Mark Vientos would ground out into a fielder's choice. So Mets immediately with 2 runners in scoring position to open the game against Framber Valdez, who was just terrific. We'll get to that as we go through this stream here. But unfortunately, Brandon Nimmo flies out to left field to end the threat. And so that brought on the debut of Clay Holmes as a starting pitcher for the Mets. Started things off really good. He struck out Jose Altuve to begin his afternoon. Got a line out then from Isaac Paredes, but then Yordan Alvarez walks. And that was kind of setting the wheels in motion for the afternoon that it was going to be for Clay Holmes. The Mets pretty much went quietly in the second inning. Starling Marte got on base, getting hit by a pitch. But then in the second is really where Clay Holmes kind of started to unravel. He hit Jeremy Pena with a pitch. It was in a base hit from Cam Smith, and then he walked Brendan Rodgers, so we have bases loaded. Fortunately, he was able to induce a ground ball. Unfortunately, though, it was hit to the right side of Lindor, and he was unable to get any momentum toward second base to turn a potential inning-ending double play. But Holmes did do well to strike out the next batter and extinguish the threat. This third inning, though, is really what kind of got concerning. Clay Holmes comes back out. And he's able to, or I'm sorry, not able to, but he walks Isaac Paredes to lead off the inning before a base hit to Christian Walker. And then Yainer Diaz with a single up the middle to score the second run of the afternoon for the Astros. And then, of course, Luis Angel Acuna with a throwing error. What should have been an inning-ending double play to get Holmes out of that at just 2-0. Instead, it becomes 3-0. I do give Holmes credit. He did put the inning away after that rather than letting things completely unravel on him. At that point, it was 3-0. He was walking guys. He didn't have good control today. He was up in the zone a lot. He didn't have a good sinker going today. Carlos Mendoza said that himself. And then when he was asked about it, Clay Holmes said, look, this is going to be an adjustment just because I had that terrific spring training. Spring training and the regular season, they're two completely different beasts, and he definitely saw that today. A full lineup of pro big leaguers going out there multiple times for multiple innings. It's not something that he's done very much in his career at all. I mean, the last time was, 2018 when he was a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I don't think it was a terrible outing from Clay Holmes. He ended up going 4 2/3, gave up 5 hits, and he gave up 4 walks, 2 runs, 3 runs, 2 of them earned. Really the stuff looked okay. Some of it was okay. He had some pretty nasty bite on his sliders. The sinker is really his bread and butter, though. And if he doesn't have the sinker to go to, it can't set up the rest of his repertoire, something that he's been trying to develop and still getting probably comfortable with here in spring, or now in the regular season, but over spring training was trying to get comfortable with. So I'm not going to crap on Clay Holmes, okay? I know a lot of people on Twitter are already saying, wow, this is a David Stern special, and I can't believe they signed him to be our opening day starter, and he can't be our 2 or our 3. Look, I don't think he was terrible. And by the way, this Astros lineup, they've lost Alex Bregman over the years. They've lost Carlos Correa over the years, and George Springer well before them. This Astros lineup can still hit. I mean, this was a pretty impressive lineup 1 through 9. I got to tell you, Isaac Paredes had a good afternoon. Christian Walker belted a couple of balls there for the team. But overall, look, was it his best performance from Clay Holmes? Absolutely not. He went 4 2/3, very nearly went 5. And look, if this were, say, a game in June and he was able to get that final out in the 5th, he probably would have went out for a 6. But his pitch count had risen so high that Carlos Mendoza really had no choice but to remove him from this game. I will say one thing that was concerning is that the exit velocity on a lot of the pitches that he did give up for hits was pretty high. They were definitely piecing him up on some of the base hits that the Astros had this afternoon. The Mets bats is the real story, though. They were quiet after that first inning. Starling Marte got on base with the hit by pitch in the 2nd, and then no runners in the 3rd. They got another base hit in the 4th, but then no runners in the 5th. So it was one of those kind of lulling afternoons for the Mets bats here in Houston at Daikin Park. Wow. Great name, let me tell you. So let's actually go to the 8th inning now. The Mets are threatening here. They're able to load the bases finally. Brandon Nimmo coming to the plate, and unfortunately Nimmo hits one on the screws, but right at Jake Myers in center field. That was the Mets' best scoring opportunity outside of the 1st inning. So that was a bummer. I mean, you see that one off the bat, the camera angle from TV looks like, oh boy, that's going to be a base hit. No, right into Jake Myers' glove. So that was disappointing. The Mets easily could have just lied down and called it an afternoon, but in the 9th inning, they're able to get a little rally going. It starts with Starling Marte getting a hit, then Tyrone Taylor getting a hit, and then Luis Angel Acuna puts in a tremendous at-bat against Josh Hader, an 11-pitch at-bat that he works for a walk. Acuna started down in that count 0-2 and was able to climb back out of that, foul off a ton of pitches, some heaters high in the zone, a couple sliders from Hader, and draw a walk. That was a really impressive and professional at-bat from Luis Angel Acuna. Hopefully he can carry that on into the rest of this season now for as long as he is still here on the Major League roster. Say what you want about Josh Hader, by the way. I mean, the guy's still pretty nasty. He's not the same guy he used to be, but he still brings the heat and has got that big slider. So bases loaded now, and this is exactly where we want to be, right? But of course, who's coming to the plate? The Mets backup catcher. I mean, guy never played in the big leagues before. Hayden Singer, who's only on the roster because Francisco Alvarez is hurt. And he's only at the plate because the inning prior, Carlos Mendoza pinch hit for Luis Torrens with Jesse Winker. I actually said to my friend on the phone, I would tell this kid, just go up there and keep the bat on your shoulder. Don't even take a swing. I mean, I was fearful he was going to roll into a double play there and totally kill the inning. I guess he did the next best thing if he was going to make an out, and that was just to strike out instead of rolling into a double play. So Sanger ends up striking out, but I also said to my friend, look, this is exactly what we wanted. We got Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto coming up to the plate with the tying runs on base. I mean, what more could you ask for? This is exactly how you would draw it up. Lindor hitting one out to center field, just in front of the warning track, and the sac fly chases home the first run. And then, of course, Soto comes to the plate, 1st and 3rd, representing the go-ahead potential winning run at the plate, gets ahead of Hader 3-0, and somehow chases on that final strike 3. He took strike 1 on the inside part of the plate, took a hack at the next fastball up and in on him, just maybe a little behind it or a little below that pitch, couldn't get the barrel on it, and then strikes out on the slider that was in the right-handed batter's box, something that you don't see Soto do looking kind of foolish very often at all. I mean, even the broadcast crew of Gary, Keith, and Ron said the same thing. So, of course, all the other fans from around Major League Baseball are trashing the Mets. They're trashing Mets fans. And, of course, Juan Soto, $800 million to do something like that in the clutch. It is what it is. It's game one of 162. Let them say what they want to say, okay? It can't bother you. You can't let it bother you, okay? This is how I look at it. We're sitting at the big boys table now. This is the adult table. You don't get made fun of if you're still sitting at the kids' table. So I take it for what it is. It comes with the territory. So we're going to get trashed when Juan Soto doesn't live up to the expectations that we and every MLB fan has of him, and that's being a generational superstar talent. And this one at-bat on opening day is not going to define Juan Soto, his tenure with the Mets, or this Mets season in 2025. So to anybody that's trying to trash talk you about this, just give them one of those, because it is what it is. It's the first game of the season. It was disappointing to see, don't get me wrong, but there's 161 more of these. So let's get into the actual box score here. We'll start with the lineup. Lindor takes an offer. He gets the only RBI of the afternoon for the Mets with that sac fly. Got robbed on that base hit in the first inning from Pena leading off the game. A couple at bats where I thought he looked a little jumpy, a little antsy, probably typical for opening day. I think a few other guys in the lineup also felt that way. Juan Soto drawing 2 walks, getting a base hit, his first at bat. Obviously, the only one they're going to talk about is his strikeout to end the game, but great debut for Juan Soto. Pete Alonso had the best looking at-bats I've seen from him in years today. He finished with a base hit that went to right field and 2 walks on the afternoon. These were some of the most disciplined, most conscious at-bats that I feel like I've seen from Pete Alonso since maybe 2022 or possibly even before that. He was spitting on that outside slider. He wasn't diving on those sliders in the dirt. He was not chasing down or up. He just looked really comfortable and totally in the zone today. And who knows if it's because this whole contract thing is behind him, or he's focused on next year getting that big contract, or maybe just feeling more comfortable with a little bit better of a lineup around him. But I was so happy to see that from Pete today. I thought he had an amazing approach, and it showed. Base hit, 2 walks on the afternoon. Those 2 walks, by the way, coming in some pretty big spots. The first one came in the first inning with Soto on base, and then in the 8th inning, he really was able to keep the line going at that point in what turned out to be a failed rally for the team. Mark Vientos, on the other hand, did not like what I saw from Mark Vientos today. He looked like he was trying to hit the ball 700 feet all afternoon, every at-bat. I'm pretty sure he started 0-2 or 1-2 in all 4 of his at-bats this afternoon. He finishes 0 for 3, no hits. He did draw a walk in the 8th inning as well. He actually was down 1-2 in that count before drawing the walk, so I give him credit for that. But I think this was a case of, hey, he came off such an amazing year last year, and he's hoping to repeat it, and he just wanted to come out slugging and, swinging a hot bat, and he may have just gotten out a little ahead of himself. He'll cool down as far as his emotions and his kind of adrenaline after, I think, today now with opening day out of the way. But didn't love the approach that I saw from Mark Vientos this afternoon. Nimmo went 1 for 4, good for a base hit always. Starling Marte had a knock and also drew a walk. Tyrone Taylor 1 for 4, and then Luis Angel Acuna hitless. But again, got to give him props for that amazing at-bat in the 9th inning against Hader. Luis Torrens had a base hit as well, that one that deflected off the right fielder's glove. He ended up at second. Don't know if they scored that as a single or if they scored it as a double, but of course then he was removed in the 8th inning, or maybe it was the 7th. Jesse Winker pitch hit for him, who also grounded out. And then, of course, Sanger striking out in the 9th inning in his lone at-bat. So, the lineup, it was a case of not really being able to string enough hits and base runners together. They had 3 really good opportunities. The first inning, which they failed to score when Nimmo flied out. The 8th inning, when Nimmo, again, flew out. And then in the 9th inning, when Lindor and Soto just weren't able to do enough. So a little bit of a frustrating day for the offense. I saw some pretty good at-bats from a handful of guys, like I said, Pete Alonso, Luis Angel Acuna, but overall I think a lot of this is just kind of April, or I guess it's still March jitters, opening day jitters, and this lineup will come around. We'll definitely see them scoring some runs, but when you're going against a guy like Framber Valdez, there's a reason that he's one of the best pitchers in the league. I mean, the guy was tremendous today. The Mets have always struggled against Valdez. I don't know the numbers historically, but I think there's only actually been one time, if I remember correctly, and it may have been last year where the Mets touched him up. Other than that, he's really shut down the Mets over the years. Terrific outing from him. You kind of just have to tip your cap at the end of the day. Going to Clay Holmes and the pitching now. Clay Holmes, like I said, 4 2/3, gives up 5 hits, 3 runs, only 2 of them earned, walked 4 batters. That's really what sunk him. That second and third inning when he just couldn't find the zone, didn't have the command of that sinker. He was up high in the zone, got hit really hard there on his fastball by the Astros today. And that was really his undoing in this one. Like I said, if this was a June game, I think Mendoza would have let him try to get that final out in the 5th inning and then possibly even venture into the 6th. Who knows what happens in the 6th inning, but in totality, if you call this 5 innings and 3 runs and only 2 were earned, that's not a bad outing at all from Holmes. It's the things on the periphery, like the walks and the errors that came with it that are really frustrating from the pitching and defense side of this one. One thing that was not frustrating, though, was the Mets' bullpen. Huascar Brazoban came on in the 5th inning with 2 outs with a runner at second, and Brazoban was terrific this afternoon. It was actually a runner at first, but he stranded him there in the 5th for his first out and then delivered 2 more scoreless innings in the 6th and the 7th. He finished his pitching 2 1/3, just 1 hit and 1 walk, and struck out 2 batters. I mean, ironic. He's the last guy to get put on the roster, and yet he's the first guy out of the bullpen and just totally delivered against that Astros lineup that looked pretty solid. And then Danny Young came in the 8th inning and pitched a scoreless 1 inning. He gives up just 1 hit, strikes out a batter, stranded a runner. So really solid outing from the bullpen to keep this one close. I mean, we were 3-0 the whole time. The bats were dead. And those 2 guys come in, and it could go one of 2 ways. The way it went today, which was great, or it's one of those, they're going to give up a run or 2 each, and all of a sudden it's going to be 6-7-0, and you're saying, all right, save the main arms for tomorrow out of the bullpen. But these guys looked really good, Brazoban and Danny Young, so happy to see that. Something to hopefully build on with them in the future here as the season continues on. And that's really it, guys. Soto strikeout shouldn't define him more this afternoon. Overall, had a pretty solid game other than that. And, we're just going to have to come back tomorrow, hopefully get a W. Tylor McGill, big drip on the mound in Game 2 at Daikin Park. And I'll never get over that. I mean, what a terrible, terrible advertising name. But hey, you know what? Money talks, I guess, right? So hopefully the Mets will get back on track. Apple TV, by the way, if you don't have it, be sure to find a friend that does, or you can hit me up and I'll give it to you for a good price. It'll be on Apple TV at 8:10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow as the Mets look to even up their record, get their first win of 2025. So be sure to tune in for that. And otherwise, appreciate you guys tuning in to this stream. See you all tomorrow. Let's go Mets.